says we're live. It says we're alive.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take home as your reality is adjusted.
Squiddly bee. Please remain calm while your reality is adjusted. Stop the screen share. I can see the chat room. I can go. Bing, it's just me. Look, it's just me on the screen. I suppose I should do the main part first. Welcome, folks. Good evening. Yeah, it's another brand new edition, season 3, and I'll explain some of that in a bit. A brand new edition of Sol Excalibre on this moon day evening. Hopefully the light quality will stay all right. I might have to switch the light on in a bit. On this moon day evening, just gone 8 p.m. on the 19th of the 8th, 2019, the 19th of August. The autumn is coming, the autumn is beginning. But I will get more into rambling about stuff like that in a minute. So, yes, it looks like it's going all right. Yeah, I'm trying to do multitasking at the same time as clicking on buttons and seeing if things work. Let's just try that one. Can you see that? Bruce got a fish and it was this big. It was this big. It's this big. I will be clicking buttons and doing stuff just to see how well they do or don't work this evening. So please bear with me. It's the first live broadcast of me utilising this new software. Peter used it on Wednesday night on the reality chat when we did that, and it worked great. So, you know, when you're hosting the room, you get to see a control room which has more functionality on it than the guests in the room can see. So when I was participating in the reality chat on Wednesday, I couldn't see everything that Peter had available to him in the control room. So this is my first experience of seeing this actually live and operating it. I did a test using the software last week just to get the hang of the way the room's laid out and stuff like that. So I've got a fair idea of what you can and can't do in here and what goes on. But I'm going to be twiddling with it so that then I can watch this broadcast back myself afterwards. Because obviously I can't exactly watch it while I'm broadcasting. I can check that it's showing up okay and whatever. I can see it coming out on YouTube, and it's got a much better camera quality than the Hangouts ever used to get. And that's just with the same drivers on my camera, the same drivers. But this software seems to be able to utilize them better than the Google software ever did. But yeah, I'll be clicking things and flicking through things, and let me just go back. Now I can actually see the comments on this comments page on the operating the host control room for this program, this software. You see the integrated chat room from YouTube, so I no longer have to try and have multiple windows in a jigsaw on my screen to try and fit everything in. It's all on one page, one window in front of me, which is great. Means the only thing I ever need to have open is if I'm looking at my notes or flicking through articles to use for a screen share, which is really good. Functionality and ease of use. Before I carry on, I want to give a big shout out to Super Leads. Thanks, Super Leads, for recommending this a couple of weeks ago now. I think you first posted a comment and sent me the link. I know, like you say, you're just helping out, you're just passing on a link of something you've seen, but that's exactly how this kind of decentralized networking works. That's one of the best functions of a decentralized network. You come across stuff that is useful to you without you having to actually type in a search term. You just ask other people. Word of mouth spreads. And I can see this software, this app. I know it's called an app. As far as I know, it's because it operates on a cloud-based system. So there's nothing to download. You don't have to have any specific software already set up on your system. If you've got a system that can utilize a browser to surf the internet, then you're more likely able to make use of this software. You need a camera or at least a microphone. You can do audio as a minimal, or you could do just camera if you wanted to with no audio. That's your choice. But the point is, you need minimal equipment and software to make this function. And that's great. That was why we sort of made use of or became attached to the Google Hangout system in the first place, because it had minimal requirements to make it function in that ability to broadcast a conversation live to the public. So we could have multiple people in a room having a conversation or looking at articles and talking about stuff, and that then is broadcast live to the public. Google decided to take away that functionality from the Hangouts. The Hangouts are still there, but now they operate a bit more like the Skype software, where you can set up a room and invite people to come and chat in the room, but that is a private room that is only viewable by those people that are participating in it. Unless, of course, like with Skype, you record it and then upload it as a podcast, like I did last week. But the functionality of being able to pass this on to public view, to connect it to other services that allow streaming live broadcasts, this software does it a lot better than Google ever did. That makes me wonder, I think I mentioned this over the last couple of weeks. Why did Google take away that functionality at the moment? Does it happen to coincide with a lot of the other restrictions, crackdowns and censorship, etc., that they're bringing in to the social media platforms to maybe not outright stop, but they're certainly stifling, and they're applying a chilling effect to people's discourse, to the general conversation that goes on in that public sphere of the internet. I know there is an agenda, there is a plan to get people to invest into their virtual existence such that it will become the place where a lot of the aspects of your life now take place, rather than in the real world, as they say. And one element of that is they want people to accept that the internet is the place where you have all your conversations. It is the place certainly where you have your public discourse. So in other words, if you want to have a town hall meeting involving your councillors or politicians or whatever, then you're supposed to accept that it will all take place in this virtual space, so that they can have a separation between the control system and actual public questioning, or that kind of debate of like, please explain why you're spending money on XYZ. They don't want the risk of that face-to-face. Could talk about Joe Cox and stuff like that in that reference, of how they've been gradually creating a separation between those who operate the machine of social power and control and the public who are subject to that machine. You will no longer be able to confront, even just a question. Confront does not mean that you intend to do harm to the other person. It means you're contesting what is being presented to you. They don't want that out in the public, and there's a couple of things I'll mention in a bit that sort of relate to that. But let me get on with talking about the functionality of this program. I highly recommend this if you already do this kind of thing, or you're inclined to start doing it or participate in it, whatever. I would highly recommend this software. It works very well. It's very simple to use. As I said earlier, you need minimal equipment and you can start doing this. That functionality, that simplicity of use was something that I appreciated about the Hangouts, even though they weren't quite as capable as this software. But it was just the fact that within a few clicks, you could have a live stream, either go live straight away as soon as you want, or you could schedule it and connect the Hangouts to YouTube as a scheduled broadcast, and set up a time and do a regular show or whatever, a daily show, whatever you want. And the reason I wanted that simplicity of use was not because I don't appreciate what the technology can do, or that I personally don't want to be able to operate the technology to such an extreme. In other words, there is a lot of software out there that gives you the kind of technical ability on your own home system to do full video editing and broadcast quality output if you so choose to. But a lot of that software has been not necessarily popular because it required a fair amount of technical learning to begin with. As time has progressed, they've got a bit more usable and simplistic to a certain degree, but you would still need a certain amount of technical knowledge to get these systems functioning well, to get the software functioning well. So it was something that was always sort of in the grey area in terms of the general populace being able to just go, oh, I want to talk about so-and-so, click, click, click. Hey, everybody, let's talk about. There was a certain sort of learning curve required, which put a lot of people off from participating in that kind of thing. That, combined with the desire by the system to commercialize this environment in one way or another. Over the years, we talked a lot about the kind of adpocalypse effect, because this didn't begin with those recent emanations of the system trying to control what advertisers will put on videos and whatever. This goes back right to when they first started offering monetization on the YouTube platform. As soon as they did that, that was bringing in commercialization. That commercialization creates and requires a demarcation between the public and the professionals who carry out that production. So in other words, whether you liked it or not, there was a middle ground where the businesses, the companies that produced hardware and software to enable this kind of stuff to happen, kept a certain distance from the general populace by creating price brackets and that, like I said, that kind of technical learning curve that would put a lot of people off from doing this kind of thing. It's a little bit like sound engineering, which I did many years ago. I learned how to use a 64-channel desk, reel-to-reel tape desk, setting up mics, all that kind of recording musicians live, and how to then author and edit the tapes, etc. That was quite a learning curve. So most of the populace just don't do it because you leave it to the professionals. So there is that demarcation between hobbyist and the professional marketplace that then allows the system to bring in things like licenses and training courses and certifications and companies that specialize in doing nothing but training you how to do this thing. So there's a company that teaches you how to be a broadcaster or whatever. And look at the YouTube Academy, which started up after they began monetizing YouTube. All very deliberate stepping stones towards a certain marketplace model that they were working on. So bringing that back to now, why using this and why I was so happy to find something like this and go, yes, that's working, click, 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 thank you, that's what I wanted, is because to me, what's important is not the technical presentation. It is the ability to be able to speak publicly live, live in the sense of if people choose to, they can tune in while we're broadcasting, so they're seeing the broadcast live. If they want to, they can see it as it becomes a recording and sits on the YouTube channel. They can come back to it afterwards or reference it, etc. But the fact that you can, with minimal equipment and knowledge and time required, you can go click, 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 set up a broadcast, boom, go, let's talk to the public. That, to me, is much more important than, oh, look, I can do fancy graphics on my screen. It's much more important than being able to do things like, oh, look, here's a banner, you smell of poop. Oh, everybody's super enlightened, and I've got to pay for a license to have the authority to be able to control this software, to operate this software such that I can stick a silly banner on the screen. Yeah. I know for many years now there's been freeware, or what was also called shareware software, this open source kind of software where primarily the authors would use Creative Commons licensing, where they say, you're allowed to use this software as long as you give credit where credit's due. In other words, you keep the author's name in there and you make public any changes you make to the software, etc. That's why it's called open source. Everybody can see the data of the program itself and any changes that have been made to that. It's all there for everyone to see, so people know what's been changed, how it's been upgraded, how the software has changed over time, etc. All these kind of things have been available for a while, but there's still a certain amount of learning curve involved. So programs such as OBS, which is a really good program if you want to do this kind of broadcasting stuff. It gives you loads of options and functionality, but it's got a little bit of a learning curve, and it can be a bit finicky to get set up, certainly when it comes to doing broadcast via other platforms such as YouTube. So you have to get the two things working together well, so you get your broadcast going and you got the functionality, blah blah blah. That's great. And for those people that want to do that, great, because like I said, it gives you lots of abilities that enable you to do broadcast quality presentations. And there's a lot of people and groups of people out there that do that. They use freeware, software, etc. I know Steve Tagoose, check his show on a Saturday night. Thursday nights now. I keep still saying Saturday night. Thursday nights on the Steve Tagoose channel, The Mystery Show. I did send him an invite. If he's around, he's welcome to join. But he uses, because he's running on a Linux operating system and he's using freeware and shareware and stuff like that, and he does the broadcast himself. He sets up the software to control his cameras and connect to the YouTube live stream service, etc. That's great. Having people being able to do that kind of thing means we can offer a presentation that allows you to make use of video, not just audio, but video as well, to add more oomph or to frame the information, to present images or articles or video clips, etc. You know the way it goes, the kind of thing you can do creating like a documentary format, for example. Including the visual element makes a big difference for a lot of people. Podcasting and audio presentations like radio shows, podcasts, etc. That's great. There's a lot you can do with audio, and I'm all for that. I like doing things in audio more than anything else because I've got a face made for radio. So it often, the audio is more important to me than the video, far more important. But the video element connects with so many people, and the more that has been learnt about and observed about how the visual element is important for people, either for very genuine reasons of the fact that as beings we take notice of the visual, seemingly as a primary sense. We give credence to the visual first out of all the senses. Most people do, the majority of people do. That's why you have phrases like believing is seeing, stuff like that. It's like, really? But it has that sort of commonality, that generality, that most people refer to their sight as the primary of their senses. But being able to utilize video does make a difference to people. Like, I started broadcasting my face simply because of the kind of comments and interactions I had where people were like, well, we can't see you. We don't know if you're telling the truth because we can't see your face. And it's all about micro emotions, expressions, body language, gesticulation, waving your hands around. You know, and for some people, they can be a bit obsessive about that kind of stuff. But even allowing for those people that would demand to, like, oh, I need to see your hands. Are you making symbols with your hands? Oh, look what you're doing. Yeah. To a certain amount, it's sort of sating those people's need to question that kind of stuff for themselves. But for the majority of people, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, you do give a lot of credence to what you're seeing on the screen. And that can be used against you. Yeah, that can be used to manipulate you. I might need to stick the light on in a minute. Got Bruce over the left shoulder, and I got the evil ducky up there floating in the ether. One on the left, one on the right. Look, I'm making symbols in my hands again. Anyway, get on with it. Before I start rambling too far, I was only wanting to say a quick sort of explanation about this software, and it does what I want, and that's great because now we can carry on with what we're doing without having to do loads of technical setup and stuff like that. I could do that. I just don't want to spend the time and effort learning a new software package and then having to sit here going through that kind of twiddly phase of getting the two to work happily together so that when I come to want to do a broadcast, I can set it up and I know the sequence, the order to click the buttons in so that it does what I want, etc., etc. That detracts from the time I want to invest in actually thinking about other stuff, talking about other stuff, observing what other people are talking about, etc. I didn't come here to be a professional broadcaster or to even learn how to be a professional broadcaster. Yeah, yes, I've found it useful to know a little bit about file formats and how to edit video and stuff like that, but that isn't what I was setting out to do. My intention was to be able to broadcast what I want to broadcast, and say and present what I want to present, and the audience being able to get that clearly. You know, you can hear me clearly, you can see my face. The video quality might be a bit fuzzy, but it works. You can see me. So that's what, to me, that was what was important. Not becoming, like I say, not becoming a professional broadcaster and learning how to do lots of technical software stuff. I'm sure some people out there be going, oh, it's really easy to use. You must be an idiot because you can't do it. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll be an idiot in terms of that functionality of this software stuff. Yeah. That's it. It suits me. It does what I want. It gets the job done that I'm asking of it. And this software is exactly that. If anything, it potentially is, because it's still being developed. The guy who's brought it out is, you know, constantly working on it and adding little features and tweaks here and there. And I can see this becoming much more than it is even at the moment. And that could make quite a difference in this environment. I know some people will say, well, you know, this kind of functionality has been available for those who can be bothered to learn how to use the software, etc. But again, you're hitting that separation between, you will have a handful of people that are willing to put in that effort, and then you'll have the mass of everybody else who just defers to them because they for whatever reason choose not to do that. I think it's highly important, it's vital at the moment that the general populace is able to make use of this technology in this kind of fashion. So making it as easy to use, as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, that's potentially a major game changer. This software has the ability to connect you to different platforms. So it's not just connected to YouTube. People can use it for the other major platforms if they choose to, which means it makes a very good decentralizing effect this software can be applied to multiple different platforms. So that decentralizes people away from being forced to use a proprietary software provided by the platform itself. So like we were using Google Hangouts, YouTube is Google, so we were using their proprietary software. So that sort of restricted us to only presenting on YouTube. Now, if I choose to, I could make use of this software to connect me to other platforms. So I'm no longer restricted to YouTube if I choose to. That could be a major game changer in this current environment where, even though there is a conversation to be had about investing too much into this virtual environment, at the same time having more and more people being able to have open discourses about whatever they choose to talk about, to me, that is vitally important at the moment. The movement of information and ideas is vastly more important than people making money through that commercialization process of creating a professional and hobbyist separation, etc., etc., etc. If you're interested in doing this kind of stuff, check it out. It's called StreamYard. I'm sure you can tell by the name in the top corner. At the moment, we're making use of it for free. It's offered for free with this functionality. That may change in the future. Hopefully, they still allow us to have this functionality for free, because I'm sure the guy can make money out of other aspects of this software, such as offering specialized functions for various things, which already exists. For example, I can't change that logo in the top corner, and I can't change these overlay banners unless I purchase a subscription, which to me is all fair enough. I can make use of the basic functionality, which gives me the basic requirements that I want. And then if I choose to, I can subscribe if I want to be able to add fancy graphics over the top. But at the moment, I'm more than happy with the functionality of it. So, endorsements aside, and I'm not receiving anything in return for what I'm saying. To me, like I banged on about, the important thing is people being able to have or view these kind of presentations, making it as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. Let me just say a quick hello to everyone in the chat room, because I have seen it been ticking up. And Super Leads, hello mate. Paula B, hello. I'm glad you made it. And the cannabis-based life form, hello. Gypsy Soul, hello. Misty Ernst, hello. This is so much easier having the chat room right there in front of you, and I can, if I choose to, I can select comments and just throw them straight up on the screen. So if people ask questions, or you post a bit of info or idea or whatever that I think is cool, I can put it up on the screen. Even if you put something up that I think is terrible, maybe that could also be utilized as part of the conversation. Sorry, I didn't finish where I was. Zero Infinity, hello. Neo Dog, hello. It's working fine, can hear clearly, and picture quality okay. Adds a soft audio. I need to put the light on because now the soul has gone into his other place where he's shining on the other part of the planet at the moment, so it's getting a bit dark here. So anyway, let me quickly crack on, because I was supposed to be mentioning some other stuff. 2 other things. Yeah, you probably noticed that this is Sol Excalibre Season 3, Episode 1. The podcast I did last week, I labelled that as Season 0, Episode 1. And I'm going to keep Season 0 as that kind of file or folder, if you like, where if I happen to do a pre-recorded or something like that, record a podcast or just a video clip or whatever, I'll include it under that banner, under that title. Whereas if we're doing live broadcasts, these will be part of a ongoing season, a current season. And considering the Hangouts finished recently with that last episode 27, that was the last live broadcast utilising the Hangout system, the Hangouts on air. So it seemed appropriate to start a new season. Plus, while I was sat thinking about things over the recent week, 2 weeks really, it synchronistically all started to nicely fall into place, and I will try and explain why. This might seem a bit way out there for some people, but yeah, whatever. I'm going to, just say it as I see it anyway. Today is the 19th of the 8th, 2019. If you do a simple I think it's Pythagorean numerology, where it's just reduction to a single digit, you add all those up together, you end up with a 3. So today is the number 3. If we're doing Sesame Street kind of thing, today is a number 3. As part of that as well, it's almost kind of like a numerical palindrome, because you've got 19 at the beginning and 19 at the end. And as I have sort of talked quite a lot this year about 2019 being the year of the Phoenix, or the fulcrum point where major change is going to start kicking in. Certain things are going to be closed or finished with or ended, and new chapters, new narratives will begin, or new possibilities will start opening up. Some of those new things may have potentially negative or dark connotations, but at the same time, there are a lot more positive and creative opportunities that are opening up. So this year really did seem to me, for many, many reasons, this is the year of the Phoenix. So the 19, I'm taking as significant because, again, if you reduce it to a single number, it takes you back to 1. So it's like a reset of the numerical process. You go from 1 to 9. 0 is where you start from, then you go from 1 to 9. And when you get 19, you back to 1. 1 plus 9 is 1, 0, 10. 0 is nothing, so you're left with the 1. And today, being that 19th of the 8th, at the same time, the 8 is a representation of infinity. There's a level of Kabbalistic element to this. And I'm not a follower of Kabbalah. I don't use Kabbalah in the way that a lot of people do. I say a lot of people, some people do. And so many people give it so much credence and whatever. I think it's a very interesting part of reality, that mathematics can be used in various ways that have almost baffling connections to the way reality operates, or may seem baffling and confusing on a surface level. But the more you keep digging into that inquiry of how reality is highly mathematical, I know it seems like it's all fleshy and wobbly and hairy and gooey and all that kind of stuff, but there is absolutely an underlying mathematical sequential connection, so that we experience certain connections via numbers, those symbols as we use to represent a quota, a numerical quantity. So you got 2 of something, 2, you write the symbol 2. We all know what that symbol represents, 2 things. You have 2 things. So it's, for some it might seem like it's a bit Kabbalah or Kabbalistic. That's not my intention. This is based on a lot of other multidisciplinary connections of why certain numbers are in the position they are in that numerical sequential order. For example, why the number 6 is where it is, why the 7 is where it is, why the 8 is where it is, etc., etc. The 8 represents infinity. So you've got the 19 in infinity over the 19 again. The 8 and the 2 added together make another 1. That's why I said the number reduces to a 3. So on the 19th, which is kind of like a numerical representation of that Phoenix reset effect, where it goes back to the beginning again, you go back to number 1 again. In vortex maths, you go back to the number 1 again. during the season or during the month of infinity. August is the harvest month. We will be approaching the harvest very soon, allegedly, supposedly, if you don't consider the impacts on agriculture and the growing phases of the year in the current so-called climate change bullshit environment. You know, there are a lot of agricultural changes happening at the moment, which means harvest in the August month may not necessarily be accurate. Farmers are having to harvest at various different times, or the crops aren't maturing correctly so that they can harvest them at the moment, etc., etc. Anyway, August, the harvest month. Coincidentally, this month has 2 new moons. This is why in the subtitle for tonight's broadcast I put 2 moons for fapstain, and I'll get to that other thing that's been going on over the last month as well, or last couple of weeks certainly. But the 2 new moons, it just so happens that this year, in this August, let me see if I can find that page I had with fly, get out of it. So I've got the window open, so I've got flies floating in to come and say hello. Need screen share. Do screen share, yes. Yes, please, do screen share. Screen share that one. And then can I actually view that without getting infinity page? Yes, I can. And just put it straight up on there. Make it a bit bigger by putting it solo, yeah. All right, as you can see, in August, on the 1st of August, there was a new moon. And on the 30th of August, there's going to be another new moon. So in this month, the month of infinity, just because it's the 8th month, so don't put any more connotation onto it than that. But the 8th month, there happens to be 2 moons, 2 new moons. So it's almost like the moon's going through a full phase. It is basically going through a full phase within 1 month. So you're going from new moon to new moon, which is the dark face, as in it would be, dark. You don't see anything of the moon. It's not a full moon. It's not a third or a quarter or whatever. It's just nothing, just darkness, supposedly. During that infinity month of 2 moons, with the moon at the beginning and almost at the end, because it's on the 30th, so it's not on the 31st, but of course, Halloween. Samhain, but I'm not going to dig too far down that tunnel. I just wanted to make a mention of it. But during this infinity month of 2 moons, we've been getting this storyline about this billionaire international pederast. Really, it's more about the network rather than his own personal individual perversions, etc. I think I mentioned this maybe on Wednesday or the week before on the podcast or something. If he was just wanting to satisfy his own perversions, considering he was a billionaire, he could have been off and away and doing whatever without need to have this international network connected infrastructure of rich, powerful, famous people, celebrities, politicians, etc., etc. He wouldn't have needed any of that. He could have gone under the radar and done whatever, without being in any way visible to the public. Because if he is supposedly a billionaire, and that in and of itself is questionable, but if he is, even if he's just a millionaire, he would have more than enough money to be able to get away with that kind of stuff hidden from public sight. But no, he didn't. He set about building a network, making a black book full of contact numbers and details and, little clues about what people are after or what their perversion was, etc. And at the same time, he had a place, his little island, where that connecting could take place. He could bring people to that island and present them with access to the whatever you could call it, the cesspit. So it's not about him just doing his perverted thing. No, this was about creating a network. And that network was primarily concerned with people who were in positions of power in one form or another, either political power or influential power. So in other words, Hollywood celebrities, people who can influence the mass of the public by what they do, either in their career or in their personal social media profile of themselves, whatever. They have an ability to have a mass influence effect on the public. So that happens to come back into the fray within the last month. He was brought back in on charges. There was subpoenas to open sealed documents, etc. I'm sure unless you've been deliberately avoiding it, which you could do, but not looking at any of the media or whatever. But unless you've been trying to avoid it, you're probably well aware of all the stuff that's going around, flying around about the connections to him and what he was up to and blah blah blah. And this is partly why I wanted to mention this here, and how I know in my kind of circuitous and seemingly fractal fashion, I may be seeming to connect things that are unconnected. They're not, I know, but it seemed interesting, or it stands out to me how this particular story or this particular narrative is back now at this time during this month, where there's the two moons that are going to create a culmination within the month itself, within a single moon phase. And this is brought forward, and it's the infinity of the same narrative that has been playing now for years, many, many years, where this guy has been allowed to do what he's doing. And if anything, he has been enabled by other powerful people or agencies, the networks, the infrastructure of the governing system itself, the supposed system of authority and power. He has been enabled to do all this and allowed to get away with it. It's very, very similar to, I think I mentioned this the other night, very, very similar to the situation around Jimmy Savile. And in a similar fashion, the same way as they did with Jimmy Savile, they waited until after he was dead. So they can all turn around and go, oh, it's historical. We knew stuff was going on, but, we didn't happen to step forward at the time and tell the authorities or raise any argument about it. No, we just allowed it to happen. And now we can all come out afterwards and say, oh, yeah, we knew, but we didn't do anything at the time. And now it's all historical. So, it's done now. He was the bad guy and he's dead now. So you can all, walk away from the question and just ignore the fact that there is blatant evidence in front of you, right before your eyes. I was saying about people seem to have a need to see things. Right before your eyes is the evidence that this guy, Jimmy Savile, was operating a network that was deliberately being used to manipulate, control, and influence people in power. It's blatant. It's there, right in front of you. It's undeniable, unless you choose to live in some kind of delusional fantasy that, oh no, he was just a kid's TV presenter. He was just a bit eccentric. The evidence is there, piled up. Yet people were taken to this point of almost conclusion. And then it was, but he's dead now. So, let's move on. There's no truth to all these, allegations that there is this network of powerful people being affected and controlled and manipulated. Oh, no, he was the bad guy and now he's dead. So it's all going to be over. So you don't have to worry about it ever again. And let's just keep going. The same things happen again now. They brought this guy forward and presented him to the public. The public get into a lather thinking, oh, they're going to get him. They're going to get the bad guy. They're going to capture him. They're going to hang him. They're going to bring justice on him. Hooray, the paedophiles are going to be dealt with. Look, there's the king paedophile being brought to trial. And then, oh, no, he's removed from the picture. Whether he was, whether he committed suicide, was killed, or was escaped in some fashion, taken away. So details of the situation. The main thing I'm looking at here is how this entire narrative, the entire story is being used, can be used to manipulate people en masse. And the way it is just happens to be coming out at the moment during this time where there are so many other major changes, like I said earlier, ending of chapters and beginning of new ones. We're going over a fulcrum point of the major changes here. And they bring this guy forward, like a King Pedo, and don't worry, folks, what he's done, he's dealt with. Oh yeah, we know, this means now it's all going to become historical again, and you can't really sort of carry on from the implications that people such as, Prince Andrew, so much evidence that those two were connected and that there were bad things going on there. But no, just keep moving. The Queen's put out an official statement saying there's nothing to it. There's no connections there. They were just friends. Nothing to it. Stop looking at us. Basically, they haven't quite got to the stage yet where they sort of, no, you're not allowed to investigate us. They're our courts. Our courts can't investigate us. It's got the crown over all the courts. The courts belong to them, etc., etc. And you keep digging down into that rabbit hole. And that's another part of this. It can be said, I've just been talking about, putting that point of view across, it could be said that this has been carried out so that they can get people to walk away from or to move on from the questioning about whether there is an institutionalized international paedophile ring or pederast ring, a child trafficking network that has been entrenched, well established and entrenched into the very system of authority across the globe. It has infected every nation, every political structure, because every political structure involves people, and people are fallible, and some of them have those kind of perversions. And if you present them the opportunity to pursue their perversions, some of them go for it, and then they're captured. They're in the blackmail folder now. Now they can be controlled and manipulated and maybe pushed further up the ladder into higher positions of power, or even worse, perversions, etc., etc. Again, keep digging, the rabbit hole goes down a long way in that area. That could be said, yes, they want people to drop the questioning and the pursuit of that accusation that the governments are controlled by networks of paedophiles and Satanists and all that kind of nasty stuff. But I think there's another element to this where they actively want people to pursue certain avenues of questioning or certain perceptive avenues. In other words, they're building a certain shaped tunnel. That tunnel happens to be reliant on, or the opening to that tunnel is the question of the pedo panic. The accusations of pedophilia in politics. That's the door that opens to that perception that they want the public to be stuck into. So they have to feed that narrative. They have to create the foundation of the storyline and then feed the narrative. So, for example, there has to be a bad guy. There has to be a main character that represents the opposition. Because in the storyline, there is the hero and there is the bad guy, the hero and the opposition. There are the forces of good versus the forces of darkness. I could say Hegelian dialectic here, but that's, it's just been applied to the story narrative, not the whole situation. But I think that leaves me questioning, why has all this happened at the moment, during this month, during this year? The fact that he's been gotten rid of in one way or another, and now the general populace, having been presented with a possibility, well, this could breach the dam kind of reaction, if they start investigating him properly and have him up in court and question him and stuff like that, it's going to open a big can of worms and show all these connections to people like royalty and politicians, etc., etc. Whereas really all we've been told is stuff that we knew about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I'm saying we, that's a bit of a generalization. I know I was somewhat aware of this kind of stuff 20 years ago. I wasn't aware of it really 30 years ago, but I was aware of the news at the time, back in the 80s, the early 90s, when stuff about Maxwell began to come out, stuff like that. Yeah. But the basic narrative of this situation has been well known for a long time. And they keep churning the same kind of Punch and Judy effect of, oh, here's your bad guy, folks. Get ready. We're going to sort this problem out. The paedophiles are going to be dealt with. It's going to be eradicated when we deal with this bad guy. And oh shit, somebody killed him. Oh, well, never mind. Back to the beginning again. Now we've got to look for the next king paedophile. So who's the next king paedophile that all the ramifications, the blame, the culpability can be laid at the feet of that one bad guy? This is the same as what they did with Savile. The system has turned around and gone, oh no, there's nothing else. It was just him. He was the bad guy and he's been dealt with now, so that's it, move on. They're doing the same now with fapstain. There's something that I know I've got a habit of using wordplay and deliberately messing with people's names, and sometimes the names they have, it does seem very much like the names have been given deliberately because they're either some kind of encoded message or they're just taking the piss. Basically, they're putting it in your face such that, it seems a bit obvious, but most people just don't seem to see that, because often the lie in plain sight is more easily missed than the well-hidden conspiracy secret. Those kind of well-hidden conspiracy secrets. I'm sure there's stuff out there that nobody has no idea that's going on, yeah? But the obvious lie is hidden in plain sight. They say it right in front of you. Like Jimmy Savile talking about how he was a witch, and he was accused of being a demon and all kinds of stuff, and he would say this kind of stuff in plain sight, and then you find out after the fact that what he was doing, and it's like, well, basically, yeah, he was on TV telling everybody, I'm abusing your children, I'm an evil guy, I'm doing lots of nasty shit that you don't see. He was basically, if you go back and watch the various footage of him, and you'll hear these little comments here and there from him himself, and he's basically letting people know, it's like, yeah, I'm really the bad guy, and I'm predating on you, and I am using karmic diversion or karmic delegation of putting it back on you. I've just told you what I'm doing to you, and you're not stopping me, so therefore that means you're acquiescing to me doing it. That's part of their manipulation that they do. I say they, the usual ubiquitous they. But anyway, I have ended up ranting for quite a while. Hopefully that made sense about why I put 2 moons for fapstain. I don't want to get too graphic, but there is a terminology called edging, which I might have, said too much on the last live broadcast. Maybe I gave too many details away that might have made people uncomfortable and whatever. But many years ago, I sort of skirted the edges of the porn industry, the pornography industry. And just from that, I saw some of how it operated. But of course, being in that environment meant I learned about different terminologies that would be used, different perversions, different kinks and fetishes that people had, and just some of the just absolutely weird shit that people seem to get sexual satisfaction out of. Yeah, but part of that is edging. edging is a technique where somebody would be brought close to orgasm, but then the interaction would cease. So in other words, they bring you to the edge of an orgasm and then they walk away. This is something that's common in kind of like BDSM, where the idea is to use that kind of pleasurable torment. So you tease to such an extent that you bring somebody close to orgasm and then you stop. Yeah? And for people who like that kind of BDSM, whether it be whipping or whatever, all those things are very closely connected, you know, in terms of how they affect us biologically and physiologically, psychologically. Pain and pleasure are very close, and it's used to manipulate people in that fashion. But it just occurred to me that, I don't mean just literally, I've been thinking about this past few days, but it occurred to me that that situation around Epstein and the way it seems to be a replaying of the kind of storyline they used around Savile, it's the same kind of thing. They bring in the public to the nearly the culmination of thinking, expecting, desiring, having that energy, intention, pushing into that need for release, that need for conclusion, that ejaculation sensation. That's what edging is. You get so close to it and then they take it away from you. So I wonder as well, with one of the elements of, with a lot of the other stuff that's going on at the moment, the clashes between different groups, the deliberate extreme polarizations, and then the projected peer pressure of you must pick a side and fight the enemy, you must be with us or against us, you have to choose one side or the other, etc., etc., etc. Something like that edging effect, when you're talking about what is a virtualized circus, a circus maximus, a blood sport, even though supposedly paedophilia is all about sex, you know, it's a blood sport in the same manner as it's the use of violent force and power to dominate another. In the same fashion, you're taking something from the other person, you're violating their innocence, or you're taking their life in terms of a full mortal blood sport. But in this virtualized circus maximus, many people get hooked into or obsessed with the kind of pedopanic effect, because they have that desire, that sensation, even if it's subconscious, which it is for most people, they have that desire to look on something that is abhorrent. So like the people who would go to the blood sports in the Circus Maximus, they want to see the gore, they want to see the horror. In the same fashion with something like the paedophilia, people want to experience the thrill of that sensation, like a roller coaster ride. They want the thrill of the fear of that demonic thing that is being presented to them. So they're bringing people to the very edge of expectation that this situation, these bad guys, these king pedophiles, these demons in human skin, etc., are going to be dealt with, brought to justice, but then that justice is snatched away. It's a really, really strong emotional trigger to spark people off. For the last few years, we've talked about, you know, they've been really trying hard to try and set people off, to make people angry and get them fighting in the streets, basically, or attacking politicians, which here in the UK has happened recently. You know, within the past few days, there's been an incident like that. So I wonder whether this is being done deliberately now as we're going into the harvest season, approaching Samhain, or the culmination of the summer months, you know, approaching autumn and winter, and now they're trying again to kick things off. So we shall see as things progress. You know, don't be put off asking these questions or looking at this information because it is a dark subject matter. It is. It's probably one of the worst, if not the worst necessarily, but that just, you know, that's disgusting semantics, basically. But don't be put off from asking questions about this stuff simply because there is that kind of peer pressure of, oh, you're looking at that kind of nasty stuff, or it's just pedo panic. That's just, you've been afraid of going outside and all the usual kind of bullshit. No, there is something behind these stories that they are presenting to us, but they are trying to influence people by the stories they're presenting. Keep digging. Keep thinking about it for yourself and questioning it. And I don't want to belabor the point, but I've said this many times over the years. If you bother to look, there is more than enough evidence there to prove that this is a reality. It's not paranoid conspiracy theory because you're afraid of people in power. No, there is ample evidence that this network, multiple networks, but there is one overarching network that feeds those that are right at the top of the pyramid, like the Clintons, like the Prince Andrew, the royals, etc. There is that main network that exists. It's there. It's part of reality. It influences the power, the control structures that affect your daily life. So to ignore it is the same as ignoring the volcano that's on the edge of your town. You take notice when it's about to blow up, you leave town. But if you just ignore it completely, then you're going to be, have fire and brimstone raining down on you. Anyway, before I get too dramatic, I'll leave it at that. I've ranted too much anyway in the end than I intended. Sorry, guys. Join in if you want, whenever you want. I need to add you back into the broadcasting. Sorry, Pete.
Yeah,
you got
I had to drop out. Yeah, I had to drop out my browser, I had to restart it and stop running YouTube. I think when you're uploading a show or you're presenting a show, it doesn't take as much off your system. But when you're joining, if you've got YouTube running, I've got all of the stuff running, it just seemed to lag. But yeah, I'm back. But yeah,
cool.
and good 1 hour, by the way. Good stuff.
Yeah, do you want to screen share me? Because this is, for all you that thought Epstein business and that was the end of it. This was uploaded earlier on by what's his name, Pockets of the Future. LA sex club party promises to explore the secrets of carnal bliss. We reported that supposed celeb-friendly sex club, Sanctum, which is like sanctum with the vowels taken out, was sold by founder Damon Lorna to a secretive group called The Circle. Now you can go to this website of this place, Sanctum. It's easy enough, just spell the letters SNCTM. And they've got some pretty blatant, sex shows going on. Yeah. So if you thought this sort of thing was ending, no, it's shifting and they're bringing it out. Yeah.
When I say ending with Epstein, I don't mean like the general progress of this situation, like things like that are going to stop. I just mean in terms of they will try to use him as like the dead stop for the connections that go to people like the royals and the politicians in the same way as with Savile. There's evidence that Savile was connected to the royals, yet no further investigation into those connections has taken place. They just said, no, he was the bad guy. Now he's dead. It's over and done. Historical.
Yeah, I mean, the people close to Epstein or the ones who used to go to his island, they were told like 6 months ago, just cut ties, don't bother anymore, go to somewhere different. And they will do a lot of this in public now, I think, yeah? So this sex club in LA, it's all good fun, lots of celebrities go. You might even get Prince Harry or somebody going, yeah? Just to, give it some credit, yeah? The other stuff will still go on, but it will have to be buried a bit deeper. Maybe they were thinking that the Epstein thing was just a bit too open. Yeah.
There's an odd synchronicity there for me because I'm talking about the random K at the end of magic. It's not random. It was Crowley that started writing magic with a K on the end. And like I said, synchronistically enough, I just if I've got the page still open, yes, I will do a quick screen share of this.
But it comes from magician, which is sh, magisterial, majesty.
Yeah, which is not a K. Yeah, but I just happened to be checking out the etymology of the word king because I thought it was primarily old English, which it is. But the reason I was doing that Because I mean, I called him sort of like King Paedophile. Is it showing my screen share there? Is that it? Is it going to come up? Oh no, it's gone off again. Why has it gone off again?
It does this sometimes. It was doing
No,
this
I
with
think-
me on Wednesday. Glitches now and again.
I think it was me. I think it was already set to show, and then I accidentally clicked the off instead of leaving it as it was. But just the etymology of king, and them talking about the potential of the word coming from the same root as the word kin. So in other words, people you're related to, or your peoples. But I was thinking about that question because of like I say, I called him King Paedophile because he's been presented as the exemplar of that thing in question. So you say, what is a paedophile? People could point at him and say, Jeffrey Epstein, there's an example of a paedophile. That's an exemplar, something that represents an example of the concept or the idea. And again, I know this might sound like tenuous connections or very circuitous connections, but in relation to it being August is named August after Caesar Augustus. It wasn't in the original calendar before the changes of the calendar and all that kind of stuff. I was talking about the 2 moons in the 1 month of August, but that's only if you're using the modern Gregorian calendar. If you were using different calendars, it would fit in differently and all that kind of shit. But it had me thinking about the word king and the letter K, because that letter is a lot more important in a similar fashion, like I was talking about earlier, about the numbers being, the symbols being chosen deliberately to fit certain positions. I've talked a lot in the past about the same thing with the alphabet, the English alphabet in particular. The letters, the symbols that are used for the letters have been placed in certain positions deliberately for esoteric reasons. And the K, which as far as I remember is the 11th letter, the 11 is the first time the singularity truly doubles itself. In other words, you go from a singularity to a duality, and that's vitally important to the base level of the reality that we experience. And I don't want to dig too far into this, but just to make the point that the K can be, in a symbolic sense, can be seen as the unstoppable force hitting the immovable object. Look at it as an arrow hitting a brick wall. In the same fashion, as well as in some cultures, you have that kind of symbolism, like the Taoist symbolism. It's the control of the self, and the inner self is channeled through the left hand, or into the left, from the right hemisphere into the left path. And the outward ability to affect reality is in the right hand, from the left hemisphere to the right hand. You put the two together in balance. That's what that represents, balance. You've got the force of the exterior with the power of the interior, and putting the two together. The letter K represents the same kind of thing. It's like I said, the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. And why is that used as the 11th letter to represent that word king? There's a lot of very deep, very esoteric connections to that, but that's strange synchronicity that in that article about that pervert club, it's like a hellfire club called, what was it, Sanctum. They happened to use a reference about the letter K on the word magic, which is what Crowley did to try and imply a different form. His thelemic magic was supposedly real and genuine and actually made things change, all that kind of shit. Sorry, mate.
It said membership by application only, and the whole thing is like it's made up to look like Eyes Wide Shut inside.
Like the Hellfire Club.
It's basically live sex shows all over the place, and everything is consensual. So whether you join in yourself or not, I don't know.
Just one other, I know again about language kind of thing, but one other element of that is they've taken the vowels out of the word. That connects it to
Hebrew?
Yes, exactly right. That connects it to her Hebraic or Hebrew linguistic roots. Some other languages use similar kind of style, as in they either don't use vowels or, you know,
Mm.
yeah, it just seemed there's some real, oh man,
Well,
very deep connected shit going on with this story that is far beyond just a paedophile being arrested and then dying. Yeah?
Let's go a bit deeper there, because it's the materialists that believe the magic power is in the hard consonant words.
Yeah, the materialism.
The true spiritual thinking people know that the spiritual connection is in the vowels, like the chorus singing, the yeah. But these people, they're materialists. They think that power is in the hard sounds, yeah.
The sharp, yeah.
Mm. So that's another basic fundamental split there. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. Man, I don't want to say the word interesting again. I'm trying to think of a simile, but it is, I think, highly interesting that all this stuff is taking place at the moment. I find it no coincidence that they're letting the public know about this thing. I mean, why tell us about that club? Other than feeding the celebrity culture bullshit, you know, like they're constantly telling people about what so-and-so celebrity has done today and what haircut they got, because they want the general populace to clone themselves after their chosen celebrity. But
it's
in the same fashion, why they're telling us about this club, we're never going to, well, I say we, I'm generalising and projecting, I'm never going to be able to afford to go somewhere like that because I'm not in the celebrity club, am I? Yeah?
And it's a little bit like the way when you start having the pedophile cases coming out in England, they start having these news stories that blame the children. Yeah. So, you know, they're trying to give an alternative side to the Epstein thing. Well, so what if the celebrities do that? Look over here. You can see them doing it openly. So
think about think also the heat it takes off the Catholic Church or the Vatican with all this paedophile stuff going on. It seems that was been rife in the news in the last few years, and it's interesting. You've got the royals always connected, like you said, Cookie, at the end of that.
They always pop up.
Yeah, you've got Prince Andrew, Prince Charles, and don't forget Prince Charles was his mentor was Lord Mountbatten. Remember him?
I saw that today as well.
Funny connection between him and Maxwell. They both died while at sea. Maxwell supposedly fell overboard, and Mountbatten was blown to pieces.
So there you have it. I mean, to see that, you're right. It was in the tabloids today as well as a big sort of story about Lord Mountbatten being a very dodgy person, and wasn't a very I can't remember what papers in the Sun. I think it was. I saw that today. But it's interesting how the Prince Andrew things come round again, because that was round in 2010, 11, 12. Those pictures were sort of going around with him with this young girl with his arm around her, sort of thing, looking quite cozy together. And then suddenly I saw today on the Beeb that they're running the story about, how the royals are, completely like they did with Savile, same thing. Savile was very close. He was in the inner circle of the Vatican as well. They brought him in right into the middle. And it's interesting that you see them now backtracking again like they did back then, just completely distancing themselves. So, and like you say, why? Why are we showing these images? Why is all this out there? Why, people are putting things together. They're seeing the Epstein thing as being a bit of a joke. There was I think a poll done this week about, can't remember what the percentage was. It was something like 60-70% of Americans don't believe the story, the official, a bit like 9/11 again. It's but the official narratives and the showing of the dead body, which was highly unusual, like you mentioned last week, all these things, and the fact that he's connected to Mossad and Israel and all of the stuff, and so it
gets even more blatant as well. As you keep, and you don't even have to really do a lot of digging per se. I know I'm using a bit of a like slang term to represent actually doing research and whatever, but they're literally putting it right in front of you. They're letting us know that the autopsy brought back results that some of the bones in his neck were broken, And any, like, again, you know, it doesn't take a lot of looking to find details of like, well, how can that happen from hanging? Only in extreme cases.
And the story ran about how the security guards who were supposedly looking after him were overworked and tired and stressed because of the job.
Are they now going to be prosecuted?
No.
No mention of that, is there?
No. They got a pay
Why
rise.
were they not arrested on the day that his body was discovered and declared dead? They should have been arrested, but they haven't been, have they? They've just made little statements in the press saying, oh, you know, we were overworked, we were overstressed, we were overtired, so we fell asleep. Both of you, at the same time, conveniently fell asleep while the cameras were all conveniently not working. Me, in a dress, in the girls' dorm, late at night? Really?
I think that's why they have coroners in England, because they can sort of pronounce this was murder, go and investigate it. In America, I think it's up to public prosecutors. It's just done behind the scenes. You want to screen share this, because I saw this picture the other day in a video, and Trump is not with that woman. This is Epstein holding on to both those women, and the one on his right, that's Ghislaine on the left or right, and on Epstein's right, that's his woman, and she's dragging Trump in towards her. Yeah, that's Epstein with two women, and Trump getting into the photo. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. I could also say that she's pulling away from him because he's not exactly someone she likes.
Could be, yeah. But I mean, that's Epstein's two women there, yeah. This is sort of the bloke he was, yeah. He was using women to pull people in. Yeah.
I have heard some people questioning as well. You know, was he? Oh, hang on, I clicked the wrong button. Sorry, Pete. I clicked the wrong button. That one. So I was trying to switch the screen share back so we could have the cameras on the side. But I've heard some people question, well, how do we know for certain? And I know this is that kind of, you know, like open speculation, which is more than probably never going to be proven one way or the other. But how do we know that it was Epstein himself that was the supposed paedophile? It could have been her, and he was just the face that made the connections. In other words, he was the face that was used to present to somebody like Trump, where it was actually her that was the one that was building and securing and perpetuating the network and the availability of the girls. In other words, she was acting like a madam at a brothel. Yeah, he could have been just literally a face, because I think it was you that asked me last week, have you ever heard him speak? And I thought about it. I thought, I haven't actually. I thought there was videos of him available, of him like doing interviews and stuff. And the more I thought about it, I thought, no, actually, I don't recall ever having seen a clip of him speaking. So how do we know that he is this, you know, he's the bad guy, he's the one in control of the situation, blah, blah, blah.
I tell you what, I'd like to see somebody do a voice, a lip reading on that video. You've seen the famous one now where Trump's telling a joke to Epstein. And Epstein's face goes like the Joker from Batman. I mean, he's an ugly bastard when he was laughing. Yeah, I'd like to know what the joke was that Trump said to him on that. Yeah.
Probably asked him about his egg-shaped penis.
Did you see Farage check the news headlines today as well about Prince Charles?
Yes.
Prince Charles told the European Parliament 10 years ago that the ice caps would melt in 7 years. We're still waiting. Because I think he wanted to go back there and talk again, yeah?
I think he's certainly kicking the hornet's nest. That again makes me wonder whether they are deliberately trying to kick something off at the moment, because they're really, really rubbing people raw deliberately. And they're putting it right there in front of people's faces by putting this kind of information right in the mainstream. Yeah, I'm pretty certain, I think many people that maybe, you know, if we'd had this kind of conversation with people 10 years ago, they might have had the impression or the idea of like, well, if it ever does come out in the mainstream, that will make you happy, won't it? You know, as if like they'd want us so-called conspiracy theorists, and that just sounds like a separation between people, but you know what I mean. They think that we would be happy that this stuff is now coming out in the mainstream and it's being shown to people. And yeah, I could say, well, sort of, yes. I'm happy that more and more people are starting to twig to a lot of this stuff. They're starting to have those realizations. They're starting to break through their denial barrier, their little delusional bubbles. But at the same time, seeing the way the system makes so much effort to manipulate people, and especially via media, then really the first thing we shouldn't be celebrating. The first thing we should be doing is asking the question, well, why are they showing this to people in the way that they are? Why are they pushing it right in the public's face? Like, it's even in the Sun, you know, talking about Prince Andrew and shit like that. Like, how are they getting away with that shit?
Why? Because after the changes to YouTube is just one example, along with all the Google censorship of searches, they know they can release this news and then control where 90% of people are going to go afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And track where people go afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can have their little alternate version that lets a little bit out, and people think, "Oh, I just found a piece of the truth. I just went down a rabbit hole." No, you didn't. You went exactly where they was leading you.
That was why I think I mentioned it last week. I talked about the similarity to Pizzagate, and again, consider here how Pizzagate served to fuel support of Trump in his lead up to election. So now they're bringing out another very similar narrative with the same kind of play out in terms of, you know, it starts and people think it's going to go somewhere and then it hits this kind of dead end. Dead, ironic, pun intended. You know, but in the same fashion as there was with Pizzagate, there are connections between Trump and the people involved in this actual situation. And Trump is... straight away, he came out with that kind of hero narrative where he's like, you know, oh, Clinton body count. In other words, he was trying to exonerate himself by making himself look like a good guy by offering up somebody who supposedly was the culprit. Do you see what I mean? The whole thing is a little nepotistic circle of certain political influences that is manipulating this narrative, this storyline, to present a bad guy and then offer up the hero. You know, Trump's going to come and get the investigation done and he's going to have all the pedophiles arrested. And you look at the shit to do with QAnon and what the whole thing all is the same play.
Yeah,
So this is just the new chapter of that current play.
Yeah.
Interesting story. If you can screen share one last time, this kind of surprised me. Yeah, this surprised me. Iran warns United States against oil tanker seizure as ship leaves Gibraltar.
Yeah.
The UK refused to hold it any longer. So this is a Boris versus Trump. Yeah, we suppose that Trump asked them to keep this thing here, but along the line, Trump, one missile at Syria. You know, a lot of sword rattling, and then he's kept pulling back. Yeah,
it's got to be the fighter that starts the fight, not the bishop. Yeah, the pawn has to start the fight, not the bishop. I suppose is another way for me to use that metaphor. For a long time now, Britain has always played the part of the bishop. They're in the background. They supposedly are not connected to the incidents that lead to conflicts, but they're always in the background somehow, somewhere. Like, think about Hong Kong at the moment. Yeah, the same situation there where China, you know, is potentially going to take over Hong Kong and crack down on it. But my point being, in recent times, certainly since the 90s, America is being used as the fighter, as the pawn that actually starts the conflict. So this, if anything, to me, makes more sense in that narrative that the UK will let the ship go and go, oh, well, we can't do what you're asking for legal reasons or international reasons or some reason why we have to now let this ship go. And therefore, that means the ship is going to be going out into international waters where it now can be preyed upon by any other nation that chooses to do so. And I was checking the reports today to see if anything yet has come of the situation. But at the moment, the last reports I saw said that it was just heading out. Nothing else has happened apart from the ship has left Gibraltar. But it wouldn't surprise me if America then takes that opportunity and says, well, if Britain won't keep up, we'll have to do it ourselves and we'll take the tanker. And they'll try and commandeer it in an act of what is blatantly piracy. And that then can be a casus belli or justification for the Iranians to claim that that's an aggressive act and the thing could potentially escalate from there. They're constantly trying to provoke the chosen opposition to start the fight. Think of how they made so many bogus stories, false flag stories about gas attacks in Syria again and again and again. It was like year after year. There was like 2 or 3 per year where the supposed allies would fake, or they would take news about a gas explosion or an explosion and they would spin it to try and make it sound like the Syrian government was gassing its own people. And then after the fact, it would come out that, oh no, actually, it was actually the militants that did this shit. But they were using it as an attempt to get the enemy, in other words, in that situation, Syria, to turn around and start attacking their forces.
There's been many years. I mean, you can go back to the Second World War with the so-called invasion of Poland, where as you know, it was the annex where they got rid. They'd split Germany up after the First World War, and technically speaking, it was Germany, but it was Polish had taken some of the land, but it was all German people living there, and they were genociding them basically. So the German army went in and sorted it out, but that was deemed an invasion of Poland, and Britain entered the war.
Yeah, I think they're doing the same with this one. They've deliberately created a situation where now that ship's got to try and move, like you show in the map, he's got to try and move all the way through that Mediterranean Sea. And the majority of that journey is going to be in international waters, which means the Americans have got all that time to try and engineer something happening to that ship.
There's interesting facts up here. Switzerland represents the United States in Iraq because Washington has no diplomatic ties with them. Switzerland, that will be something.
The Iron Bank.
Yeah, the only country with some of the most technical arms companies, and
the country that provides the guards for the Vatican. The country that was built by a mercenary company in the Middle Ages that basically got together enough money to buy their own little country.
Just like Trump wants to buy Greenland.
Yeah, I thought that stuck me a little bit. I'm still wondering what's going on with that. But I don't know whether that might be connected to the climate change agenda and narrative in some weird way.
Well, apparently he was serious. Apparently he was saying, is it for sale?
Yeah, but they said no, we're not for sale.
I do have a little story about that on Wednesday as well. One of those Trump moments again. There's plenty of them, isn't there?
Yeah, that's what he was chosen for. He makes a perfectly good showman to keep people dancing that Punch and Judy show while all this other shit is being set up. Maybe 10 years ago, I should say, maybe more easier reference for people. But 10 years ago, if you were shown like a sequential, what's the word for it, in order of the time it was released or whatever, if you were shown the stuff that's been going on that we've been told about in the news for, say, the last 2 months, if you took the last 2 months worth of news and went back 10 years and showed it to people, they'd think you were bullshitting them. They'd say, that can't be real. That's some kind of that's like some kind of movie. That's CGI that's been done for a movie or some shit, mate. That can't be real. The last several months, year, maybe 2 years, the general situation in the world is getting ridiculous. It is getting genuinely crazier. And that, I'm sorry, you can't just say, oh, that's because you're old and you're disaffected from society. And all. No, fuck you. Yeah, you try and use that kind of delusional bullshit straw man argument. No, go away. The situation in the world is becoming critical. We are creaking closer and closer to the edge of major conflict, and that is deliberately being engineered that way.
Yeah, I was going to say order out of chaos, but it's the order we want to. They want us to have the order that they're going to impose upon us once all this implodes, whatever. But
they're the ones that force the chaos to happen, so that then they can come in and say, "Hey, look at this great order that we can bring to you because you are all in chaos. Look how chaotic you are. You need our order, don't you? Buy one there, get one free."
But we create our own order, though. That's what I was going to say. We create our own way. Like I say, I said that on Wednesday about just doing your own things, and the system will die off if people just could see the bigger picture.
Yeah. And I think they've seen that. And a number of people waking up is like they've seen that tsunami of spirituality and a demand for a new age and an end to all this rubbish. And it is a tsunami wave that's coming at them. Yeah, and they're just trying to grab as much as they can before they get overwhelmed by people just saying, no, general strike, why not? My kids won't eat in 10 years, so I might as well strike now. Yeah, my kids are going to have chips put in their heads in 20 years. I might as well go on a strike now and stop playing your game. And we need to change things. And that's what Greg Hallam is doing. But he's come along too early with all the right things. We need to act now. We need to make change now. But it's so easy to see through, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
But good on him for putting these phrases out there. We need change. Everybody can see it's time for change. Yeah, Greg, thanks. I'll be using that in 5 years. Thanks, mate, because you'll be gone by then. Yeah, you'll be washed up. Everybody knew he was an agent in 5 years, but then the language will be really taking hold.
Well, it's a good connection, and again, synchronistic and connected to what you were just saying. Another news story I saw earlier today was about a website that turned out to be actually run by the Home Office Anti-Terrorism Project. Guess what the website was called? Well, the platform, because it was like a social media kind of platform. It was called Woke. W-O-K-E, yeah, Woke. And I can remember quite a while ago, I made mention of the fact of how that terminology had been pushed into the mainstream and it had become like a genre setting label for a new subculture kind of demographic creation that they were deliberately forming. They were creating it like somebody trimming a bonsai tree to make a new movement with. And then lo and behold, I saw that story today that synchronistically connects to what you were just saying. And it's like people need yet more proof, even though there's a massive pile of proof already, but you want yet more proof. Here you go. There's the government creating a social media platform website called Woke, where supposedly, it's all about this new modern idea of change of paradigm and get with the times, mate, and stay woke. And, here's the information you need. And it all turns out to be a controlled opposition limited hangout shop front created by the Home Office to deal with radicalized citizenry.
Just keep you woke to the mainstream media and the bullshit, really. That's what they're saying.
Yeah. Take your woke and choke on it.
Yeah, and I did see another story. I saw one that I mentioned Wednesday again about the fact that they're now Costa Coffee are exploitation of workers. They're now, if you work for them, you go on a training course, and at the end of that training course, they charge you for it, your wages.
Yeah, you have to pay to be trained to work in their shop.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can come from somewhere else and say, I'm already a qualified barista. No, you have to do their version of the training, because it's all just about getting money back off you.
And how much do they make? How much profit? It's I mean, this is how it's changed. We're seeing like 0 hour contracts and this sort of thing that's come out in the last 10 years or so. This making you basically work for nothing, or you're ability to earn is vastly reduced, in you know, out there, and certainly retail sector and everything, as we've seen all industry now is, well, whatever's run here is either agency work or it's heading that way. So it's mostly there already, and unless you've got some kind of extra skills or you've really, you know, trained yourself up into something, then the majority of people will be on this type of thing going forward more and more and more. It's just the start, you know. I remember working for companies back in the day, a lot of companies, you go on training courses and you would never have to pay for that. It would never, like you say, I think how things have changed, how people's minds have been switched around that way. And, you know, you would never have even joined the company. Thought, I'm not paying to be trained. I'm not paying out my own money. You want me to work for you, don't you? And earn you more cash and be, you know what I mean? You're there as an asset to them if you're working for them, earning them more money. How dare they charge you? It's a fucking joke. But anyway, so I'll start ranting in a minute. But yeah,
It's right. That's been in the news a fair bit recently as well, talking about things like employment, workplace conditions, contracts, stuff like that. That's really, you know, getting talked about quite a lot in the UK media recently.
Yeah,
it would be nice to go straight from Costa Cafe to a decent up-class cafe. And when they say, "Oh, we need to train you," you say, "Oh, we'll send the bill to Costa." I mean, they didn't give me a paper saying I'm a training barista, but they made me pay for it, so get them to pay for it.
Yeah.
Or to the fact the other reason is it's such a shit company to work for. People work there for the few weeks before they send you on these courses, and then they come back and they leave quickly or whatever, because they don't like the indoctrination they've been put under. Think Costa, dream Costa, eat Costa.
But it's also something somebody's looked at the way they did with Taylorism in the 1920s. The most skilled workers are the ones with the most self-confidence. They organise things, and they're just taking away that label of barista. You're not a barista anymore. You're just working for our company. So it's kind of taking skills away from people rather than teaching them.
I mean, what are already left? I mean, we've talked about robotization in the workplace. So most of these jobs will eventually be just redundant anyway going forward, in a sense, because, you know, the automated coffee machine's been around for a long, long time. It'll just get more what you call blingy and that, you know, with a robot serving you something, and they're doing that already, you know. And
there's another synchronicity.
That might be a good thing, because here none of them can make a decent Americano. Which is like, you know, double coffee put under the thing, run the water through once, but then kind of run it through 3/4 so you get as strong a coffee as you can without it being too big. Very few of them can do that.
I didn't keep the article open. Well, it was a news video thing. Again, it was on RT, talking about a tea shop. I can't remember where they said it was, in London somewhere, I think. A tea shop that's using a robot. And the robot's called Theresa Maybot. Yeah, they've got it with a grey wig on, so it looks a bit like Theresa. But it's like, oh man, the cheese, the fromage is strong with this one. But that was another synchronicity, talking about making coffee and baristas and tea and whatever. Man, make your own coffee, for fuck's sake, or go to just an actual cafe. Don't go to one of these corporate brand muck merchants.
£5 a cup, I may add, or whatever it is. It's a ridiculous amount of money
for sludge.
And like
I know some of them do use decent beans and whatever, and you can sometimes get a nice coffee. But for me, it's that longer term perspective that says, yeah, but there may be all right coffee, but the corporation is destroyed. It's part of the thing that's destroying your fucking world. So why keep feeding that beast when you can just make your own coffee, or go to a local cafe and just get a cup of coffee there, for fuck's sake?
Because people like to go and have coffee.
Yeah, and they're like the brand experience, because that really is what it's about. You know, can you say that you're a member of the Bruce Club? See how big the fish is that Bruce caught? It's like massive fish, Bruce. Yeah, but they feel like they're part of a group, part of a demographic. You know, they drink their coffee in a certain place, they buy a certain brand, they buy a certain style, mocha fucker frappuccino or whatever the fuck it's called. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that then makes
Yeah.
them feel included in some kind of group that the media constantly tells them is the in group to be with, and your life's shit unless you're part of this group. That's corporate marketing fucking 101. Right?
Starbucks do tend to try and keep the tramps out. I remember the cafe I once used to go to. It wasn't upclassed by any means, yeah. But there was a guy in there that looked worse off than me, yeah, drinking a coffee. And then after a while, about 2 hours or something, they threw him out. And this is like where I used to sit in cafes all day long, but I'd make sure I'd order a coffee at least once every hour, 15 minutes. Yeah. But anyway, the girl threw this guy out, but there were like about 8 kids from the rich school up the road, and they got like one Coke between them. And I said to her, you threw this guy out, but these kids here, they've only got one Coke. Oh, they're rich. They don't have to prove they got money. Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds fair, right?
She's probably hoping that them being in there will give her shop some kudos amongst their crowd, so then more of them will come in and she's more likely to get a constant flow of money from them because they've got money in the first place. That's, you know, her being a shrewd business person, businessman, businesswoman, all careful, you know, just being shrewd in business and thinking like, well, if I can get more of them to come in, then we can, you know, add another 10p on all the prices and whatever, you know, shit like that. It's just cheesy. It's marketeering and profiteering. You know, it just so happens that they built their tea shop or their coffee shop in an affluent area of the city, therefore they can guarantee a certain level of income. But there's no way they'd build one in an area that's, you know, riddled with unemployment and crime and is a ghetto, basically. Shit like that.
Yeah, I think you do see that in Starbucks, people going up to the counter, and they're happy to pay that extra couple of quid to keep the poor people out. You know, they've got that hard brow look to them.
It really, really does remind me more and more, day after day, it reminds me more and more of the environment as it was presented in the movie Demolition Man. They've shown us this idea for many years now about how supposedly the human race will split into 2 groups. You know, and I know we've talked about this many times, kind of Eloi and Morlocks and that kind of stuff. But what we're seeing happening at the moment is that very distinct split, simply because they are demolishing, they are devastating the middle class deliberately, purposefully. But by eradicating the middle class, all you're left with is the upper and lower. Yeah, and just those labels are fucking misplaced. But yeah, there will be the wealthy, and then there'll be every other fucker. And that environment, like they showed in the movie, you know, where people are in their supposed fast food restaurant where the food is just like GMO muck, yet they're willing to pay it because they feel that, well, at least that, you know, the poor people can't come in here because they can't afford it. So we're in the in crowd, we're in the celeb club, we're in the sanctum, you know, VIP lounge. Only we can come. It's all that kind of separation shit. And it's been amplified over the last few years. Now it's just becoming ridiculous. Like what Peter was saying about the contracts, you know, stuff like that. They are heavily pushing people out of not only the workplace, but also the social environment. So if you ain't got enough money, you don't go around that part of the city because the private police will escort you out. If you're lucky, you know, they won't give you a kick in on the way.
Oh yeah, I saw that article the other day as well. Different cities in England using private police to keep people out of certain areas.
Yeah. Some of the shopping malls do it as well, you know, places like that. The commercial zones, a lot more of them are starting to have private security. They call them security, not police, but they act as if they think they're police and that they have the same authority as the police, even though we can question that claim of authority by the police themselves. But these security people, they ain't police, yet they act like they are. They give people the impression that they have the same supposed rights as police, that they can arrest you and shit like that when they can't.
That's just a lack of understanding, isn't it, in the general populace, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how people react to signals and things like that. We've been sort of trained to respond to I don't know, a clipboard or a high-vis vest or a peak cap or a symbol on something, which makes people think, oh, authority or importance, or in the way, you know, so they feel they have to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Even though they've done nothing wrong or whatever, you know.
Even the creeping corporatization of everything as well. People have now become what's the word for it? Desensitized. They've been normalized to accept that you go down the local shopping mall or commercial district, you know, like a lot of them now are built around big car parks and they're big like individual shop stores. So, you know, the sites can be quite large, but you go there and you have now the expectation, you know, it's just become so commonplace that you just expect it. And in that expectation, you accept it, that when you go there, you're on private property, private land, and they have their own private security. And those security will be wandering around, acting like they're police and watching you and suspecting you of this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. But people have just accepted it as being like, well, you know, that's the way it is. The shops have got to police themselves. They've got to have security to keep all the criminals and the poor people out, you know. But really, well, hang on, where's your police? Back in the day, your local superstore didn't have a security guard standing by the cash counter.
Sorry, Cookie. Was you talking about Owen Jones earlier on when you said an MP had been attacked?
I don't know if it was Owen Jones.
No, Owen Jones. Jones the bugger. Owen Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's been attacked apparently about 4 hours ago.
No, that must be another one then, because the one I saw was yesterday.
I did see that pop up before. I didn't click the article though. Yeah.
Police Abusing Powers has just uploaded a video with the only CCTV footage of it. It's all black, yeah, and it's just this guy sort of like going, which is quite a funny joke for that channel, believe it or not. But yeah, I mean, Owen Jones, he was the one that got he walked out of that show in America because he was trying to call the Pulse Club an anti-gay terrorist attack, and I said, no, it's not. It's just another random nutter with a gun. No, they're mistreating the gays. They're a picked upon minority. This was a terrorist attack, and they wouldn't have it. Do you remember that? That was Owen Jones on the Pulse attack. Yeah, and the two Americans, they wouldn't have that. They just wouldn't listen to him. Owen Jones just looked like a total idiot. Yeah, it was completely over the top.
Don't remember. I didn't look at all the press about the Pulse attack. I looked at some of it, but not. I didn't bother with most of it.
I rarely watch Owen Jones. Every time I do it, it sort of makes me laugh or angry. Yeah.
I don't remember. I know you mean as in the political personality, but I don't remember seeing him saying stuff about that incident.
Yeah, he was. He used to write for the Guardian, didn't he?
Yeah. He's been on all the usual political shows and articles. I think he's even got his own YouTube channel and all that. But yeah, it's just that political voices again. It's like, come on, guys, you need to do a bit more thinking. It's they're stuck. So,
well, we've got 10 minutes ish. I'm going to say a quick hello through the chat room again in case there's a few people that I missed earlier because they weren't in the chat room yet, maybe. I think, yeah, if I'm scrolling up, there's quite a bit more. Apple Charlotte, Apfel, if you pronounce it as it's spelled, I don't think you do you? Anyway, Apple Charlotte, hello. Gas Mask, hello. Prince Andrew is not amused. Yeah, definitely not anymore. He's not. Although then again, considering recent events, maybe he's again. Hugh McMahon, MJ told you he was bad. Yes, exactly.
He was.
No race. Hello. Sorry. Wait.
I was going to say he was bad, very bad.
Yeah. It was totally bad. Shamo, motherfucker. And Gusma, scrolling down. Blazing Stars, hello. David Icke did good summing up the other day. Hello, all right. Well, I know Icke's been talking about this kind of like political paedophilia and the institutions and what he's like, at least 2 decades. Back in the 90s, I went, go away, fly. Back in the 90s, I said David Icke and I get the fly in my face. That's a strange coincidence. But yeah, I remember reading some of his stuff. I think it was the robot one or Robots Revolution or something. Yeah, that was all the way back in the 90s he was talking about this stuff. And now it's coming out. James Owen, hello. And scrolling down. Yeah, all about blackmailing people in power. I'm going to scroll down quickly because I can just see same names at the moment. So,
Did you see that policeman? Did you see the article about the policeman getting killed?
yes, right.
That was fucking weird. I looked it up online. It was like 200 yards from a police training college, about half a mile from Aldermaston Nuclear Thingamajig Research Centre.
Facility, whatever,
Yeah, you look around the area, it's rich, totally rich. Yeah, really. I mean, these houses down there must be like starting at $1 million. Yeah, some really nice places. So at first I thought maybe it was something in the police training thing gone wrong. Yeah.
Okay,
And they were
case of
trying to
bullying.
cover it up.
Was he a trainee, or I thought he was an actual working constable?
Yeah, I think maybe he was. Yeah, and apparently he was married as well. But I don't know, just something straight away said to me it was a false flag. Yeah, and they're making it up because of where it was. You know, it was like a drill gone live. But apparently his ex-wife, not his ex-wife, his widow, has got a big fund going for her now. I don't know. I'm not going to call it false because you don't know. But
it doesn't necessarily need to be false, like fake or hoax or whatever, a false flag, to still be used by the system to fuel their narrative. You know, they'll use it as another justification. I've seen one headline talking about knife crime in relation to that incident. So they'll use it, they'll pile on it, you know, to talk about that kind of stuff, like the Bobby who was killed in London. You know, he was stabbed as well, wasn't he? So,
well, yeah, they mentioned that ever since that guy got stabbed in London. This is the first copper that's died. Apparently, the guy that did this copper was driving a quad. And at first he said, suspected burglary. I think that was bullshit. I think what it was these country lanes, late at night, you know, you can pretty much race around on your quads.
They do it during the day, mate. They do it around here.
Yeah, right. And you can't just say, we was chasing people on quads, because people might say, well, you know, what was the speed limit? What was it? Oh, no, we thought I was doing a burglary. That sounds better, yeah? So, you know, the police make shit up all the time. They stop you in the street. We just got a message, somebody fitting your description. Did you fuck? You fuck, you lying bastard?
Yeah. That was the message in his head when he saw you. He saw you and he thought, I better get that guy. He's like, I just got information that you wanted.
You look suspicious, sir. Yeah, and that's your judgment, is it? But then again, you joined the police force, so we know what your fucking judgment's like, don't we?
Talking about looking for people. Blazing Stars is looking for some employees if you're interested. If you got some time spare to work as groom of the stall, there you go. You might get a few quid for that.
Ask a hairdresser. Ask a hairdresser. Yeah. He might groom your stall for you. Yeah, get his scissors and his comb.
Never trust hairdressers or barbers. Oldest conspiracy in the world. No, don't need no barber. You don't ever need no barber. It's all bullshit. All for show. Like, as in having it cut is all for show. It's all about the way you present yourself.
The first gate mafia.
Yeah. Do you need some lube, sir, for the baths? Do you want me to lube you up in the baths? We can trim your beard and, you know, scrape your back while you're in the bath. Yeah. Oldest conspiracy, older than prostitution, I think, or maybe the two go hand in hand. No pun intended. Hello, Louis R. Have you heard of
They were.
Zakir Naik? Not that I can think of. No, don't know. But thank you anyway. Hello. Two more just popped in. Cooper 512. I cut my own hair, do you? Oh, you don't need to cut it, right? Just brush it, clean it, look after it, and it'll deal with itself. You don't need to cut it. Occasionally you might want to, sometimes, in particular with whiskers, they come out and they grow at such a weird curly angle that they just get in the way. So, I have to trim them occasionally. But other than that, don't cut it, don't have it cut at all. And Dean Yates, hello mate, hope you're all right.
Zakir Naik, an Indian Islamic Talibanist, communal conspiracy theorist, and the founder and president of the Islamic Research Foundation. So, an Islamic conspiracy theorist. They don't like him. Somebody doesn't like him at Wiki.
A radical hate preacher popular in India with 1.5 million subs on YouTube.
Isn't Kashmir flaring up recently?
Yeah. That's it seems to be in a almost like holding pattern at the moment, but yeah, it ain't going away and it ain't quietening down. It's not easing off at all. So that's another friction point as part of the global conflict, I think. It's one of those friction points. You've got Hong Kong, Kashmir, the stuff around the Middle East is pretty obvious. You got Ukraine, and then you got some of the situation in South America. Well, there are various sort of linchpin crisis points that are going on at the moment, and I'm either in a holding pattern or they're slowly escalating. Like Hong Kong, they're slowly boiling up.
But it might be interesting looking at Kashmir and see when these things have happened before, because it's northern hemisphere Kashmir, which means that the crop and the harvest is coming about now. So in a way, it could be a kind of protection money. Are we going to let you get your big hash, your cannabis crop in, and do what you do with it every year, or are you going to give us a little bit of protection money? Yeah, but you would have thought that India's got enough to do with the monsoons hitting the rest of the country. I mean, they need the military down there to help out.
Maybe that's part of it, to draw sort of resources away from them looking after their own people, being more tied into that international marketplace. Because even though in some countries cannabis is illegal and treated as an illicit substance, it's legal, lawful, and perfectly acceptable in many other parts of the world. So for that area, Kashmir, it's a major cash crop, isn't it? So for them, it's their livelihood. It's like farmers in this country growing wheat or corn or rapeseed oil or whatever. So that's going to be tied into that international marketplace. Even though some places call it illegal, it's still traded on the international markets, so maybe that's got something to do with it as well. They're using financial pressure or the implications of financial problems if they don't toe the line and join in with the main allies' political narratives and shit like that. Wasn't Imran Khan, where did I see him? He was visiting somebody somewhere, and I can't remember who it was now.
I found out for the first time the other day, he was talking about Germany actually not invading Poland, but taking back a certain area of that.
Yeah.
And I remember everybody saying how bad and evil the Chinese were. Actually, the Dalai Lama was getting money from the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? I didn't know that before, yeah?
Yeah.
And some of it was going to buy guns as well.
Although I can't say I can point to definitive proof, there's a good amount of evidence to show that he wasn't really the true Dalai Lama. He was a plant. He was a character, a stooge, to play the role in a way that was kind of like a compromise between the West and China. So China tolerated him being like an international celebrity personality figure, and the West used him for certain narratives and stuff like that. You know, they used him like an asset, but he's not really the genuine Dalai Lama. That was somebody else, you know, a completely different person who's in hiding because the Chinese will take him and kill him if they find him.
Supposedly, they put their own one up about 20
Yeah,
years ago.
they put a fake one out as well. Yeah.
But I mean, they're all fake. Yeah, you got this perpetual Jesus figure that keeps dying and being reborn again.
Yeah.
Over and over. And when there's little babies walking around the room, you know, supposedly you've got some of these Buddhist monks who will put a set of prayer beads out from the last Dalai Lama, along with a couple of other things, like a couple of sharp knives, and see which one the child chooses. Yeah, and it chooses the. You know, if it chooses the right prayer beads, then it must be him. He recognises his old prayer beads. Oh, man, come on, man, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so what happens if one of these Dalai Lamas one day says, "Fuck going back. I've had enough. I'm going to stay up here." Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a bit ridiculous, really. Yeah.
Cookie, I'm gonna have to shoot in a minute, Cookie. So
I'm gonna wind it up.
Okay.
I was just going to say, you know, we're all going through that same returning cycle. So them saying they've had enough, maybe, you know, we all get that option.
It's interesting though when somebody makes up a religion, you know, and it sounds good as an idea, but then when you put it out there, you know, you can convince a couple of people and they say, "Oh yeah, that must be it. That's great." But once it sort of gets embedded, and now people are believing it as a literal truth. You know, I try to pin down Jay Dyer on is Jesus' real body resurrected along with Mary, flesh and blood, everything, and he's kind of it's divine now. Yeah, but is it still flesh and blood?
We'll have to come back to all those questions another time on the next episode. Sorry, coughing at you. But yeah, you're asking a lot of questions that are long conversation stuff, and so we'll do it another time. Gonna leave that. Hello, I've just noticed in the chat. Altered Edge Media, hello. Yeah, Altered Edge Media is Jason's channel, isn't it? Hello, hope you're all right. And Patrick Nee, hello. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I say hello to everybody that comes and joins in the chat. So then, you know, it's at least people know that I can now look at the chat, no problem. It's not lagging. I can actually see what people are typing at the same time as doing this thing. So yeah. Anyway, let's leave it as that. Back on Wednesday night on Reality Chat channel, 8 p.m. And then I'll be back next week, hopefully. I know it's a bank holiday next week, isn't it? So
yeah, it is. Yeah.
As far as I know, I've got no particular plans to go anywhere doing anything. So I should be here, same as usual, 8 p.m. And we'll see what happens over the coming week. Yeah, keep thinking, keep talking. Don't let them make it illegal yet. Well, you just do it anyway, even if they make it illegal. I'll leave it at that before I waffle too much. Thanks, guys, for joining in.
Thanks, Cookie and Gary. Cheers.
Yeah.
Take care, guys. Catch you again soon. Cheese. Click the button.
Pete, make sure you watch that Megalithomania, yeah?